So after you have completed your outcome map, you can then move into the process of creating an evaluation plan. So when you're making an evaluation plan, the first thing you want to be aware of is that you do not want to measure every single outcome. You're going to have to pick and choose a few of them that are going to be the best representatives of the program, that you have the assumption that these outcomes, that if we can track them, then we can assume that the rest of the program is operating well. A lot of organizations are not going to have the resources or the capacity to measure all the outcomes, and that's why it's important that we go through and carefully select some of them. So going through this outcome map, I have the first outcome as an increase in household awareness of the importance of IYCF practices. So this outcome, I believe, is not going to be a good one to measure because awareness is really only the beginning stage, and it's not important to me that they're aware. What's important to me is what comes out of their awareness, which is their request for nutrition counseling. If they are requesting nutrition counseling, that tells me that we have done a good job at raising awareness, because now the change that comes out of that is the request for more information. This is also going to be much easier to measure because we're looking at an increase in number of requests. So this is very straightforward data to collect. Very easy, very simple to do for our community health workers without really increasing any burden at all on them. So then if we move into kind of the next series of maybe more of midterm outcomes. So we have the increased milk production, we have increased confidence, we have a decrease in purchases of breast milk substitutes, and in inappropriate complementary feeding. Now again, I'm not so interested in actually collecting data on milk production and confidence. Both of those things can be done through some form of self-reporting. But to me, I really want to capture the decrease in inappropriate complementary feeding, because again, if we can track that, then we can assume that the other outcomes previously have been met. If they're not doing so much inappropriate complementary feeding, we can assume that it's because they're producing more milk, they're more confident in what they're doing, and also that the breast milk substitutes are not in the house. Plus, by focusing on the decrease in inappropriate complementary feeding, I'm again catching more than just the infants. I'm catching all children under the age of 2. So it helps to see if we are meeting our goals for both the infant group and for the young children group. Now this outcome is pretty vague, because what does it mean to decrease? What is inappropriate or appropriate complementary feeding? How do we know that this has actually happened? That's going to get fleshed out in working with indicators. So we're going to get more specific about what indicates to us that this outcome is being met. So I think I'm going to go ahead and put this one down for my evaluation plan as well. Then we have down here increase in the number of babies 0 to 6 months exclusively breastfed, and then that leading to decrease in different types of malnutrition in the different age groups. So in looking at these outcomes, I think I want to measure the increase in babies exclusively breastfed. This is something that can be pretty easily tracked in the household. Again, we can ask the mothers a question such as, what did your baby eat yesterday? That would be a great indicator of if they're being exclusively breastfed or not, depending on what the mother answers. It's a little harder to track a decrease in SAM cases or a decrease in MAM and SAM cases, because at this point we're starting to get into work that is outside of our control. There are other programs that are going on that are helping with malnutrition, and so it could be that if we're seeing a decrease in these cases, it's because children are getting enrolled into other feeding programs or because of other work that's being done by other organizations. So it's hard for us to be able to say for sure that this is an outcome of our program. We don't know if we're the ones, because of our education program, that we're causing this to happen, or if there's outside factors. It's just too big for us to really track at that level. Furthermore, I mean, if we want to know these numbers, UNICEF is collecting this all over the place, and these reports will come out in the nutrition sector group. And so we're going to get this kind of information anyway on a more broader level. So it's not as important to me that we track it. So then the purpose of doing these, selecting these outcomes and building an evaluation map is twofold. One, it tells us that our program is or is not working, or to the level that it's working, because that's something that we want to know. We want to know if our efforts are even worth anything, or if they're not making a difference. And if they aren't making a difference, what do we need to be improving on to make sure that they do make a difference? The other thing is that by tracking our outcomes, then we can lead to the assumption that we are also meeting our goals. Again, these goals are going to be way too big for us to measure on our own. We can't attribute it solely to our work, but we can contribute to it. And so what we can do is we can say, because we know we've met these three outcomes, we can assume that our work has led to attributing to these goals of exclusive breastfeeding and eliminating malnutrition in the camp. So I hope this is helpful for explaining the process of how you move from an outcome map or SONAT chain into an evaluation plan, and kind of some of the things that you should be looking for as you build that.